Hey gang, Ronan here. As you can see in this game, we've got Claymore Man 1 playing the Tier 7 Royal Navy Light Cruiser Fiji, which I just featured in another video. I will give you some basic information about the Fiji. In the last video I did about this, I went into it in some detail. Fiji has destroyer-like armor, and I'm not talking about Ragnar. This is this is a very, very squishy light cruiser, as are pretty much all of the light cruisers in the Royal Navy line. They've got paper-thin armor, and while they have smoke, the proliferation of long-range radar and ships that have hydro, and really just the opposing team's general ability to be able to use the mini-map to land shells on targets that are in smoke have all increased. So the days of smoking up, sitting still, and putting these guns to good use are not entirely 100% over. I guess they probably never will be entirely over, but until they give aircraft radar. I know. You know, just you're going to have nightmares now. I'm sorry. I don't think they're ever going to do that, but you know, they did tell us early on they were never going to put subs in the game, and you know what you're staring at right now on the screen, right? So, all that aside, you're welcome. The pros and cons: good main battery range. Base is 15.4 kilometers, fully upgraded. Accurate, rapid-firing guns that quickly shred destroyers and cruisers and troll battleships if you know where to aim. You don't want to hit the torpedo belt. Like her British light cruiser peers, it has improved AT shells and bounces often as other cruisers. Retains access to the repair party consumable, which is very handy. Long-lasting smoke generator with a reasonable cooldown time. Below average detection range, which you can see there on the minimap. It sits at currently, the way this ship is configured, 10.1 kilometers. Excellent handling characteristics, quick rudder shift, and tight turning circle. Best belt armor in the line, especially for her tier, which is just enough to arm AP shells. Yeah, I'm not sure that's a pro. 51 millimeters of deck armor, which is a high tier battleship level, which is really great if they're aiming to skip them across your deck, which is not going to happen very often. Cons: long citadel that's easy to hit and larger size than Leander. No HE shells to start fires or break modules on enemy ships. Fairly ineffective against angled enemy battleships. That is very true. Only 3 torpedoes can be launched on one side compared to same tier cruisers.
Smoke generator
Secondaries and AA are a downgrade of Leander in exchange for more guns and a salvo, and though her maximum range is respectable, her shell velocity drops off sharply and makes Atlantic hits difficult past medium range. Very thin, balanced stern armor, which I told you about, 13 millimeters.
Smoke screen set.
AP shells are bigger than 185.9 millimeters, so 186 and better will never ricochet. They'll just poke right through and do big damage. So your best defense in the Fiji is to never get hit. It is a lot like playing a destroyer with a giant citadel. Now, the particulars, I went into Sigma and dispersion, both vertical and horizontal, in the last video. I think in this game, I'll just mention to you that the guns are 152s. You've got 12 guns. You've got 4 turrets. As Claymore Man 1 finishes off the Nicholas. The reload time is 8 seconds base. 180-degree turn time on the turrets is 25.71 seconds. The range we discussed, 14 kilometers essentially, and max dispersion at that range is 129 meters. So they are pretty accurate guns. And you'll see that Claymore Man does a good job of putting shells on target. And this ship is a lot of fun. I think I mentioned in the other video that this was one of the first ships that I bought a premium camo for. And this is back when your premium camo also bought you what is now a separate bonus package. It's not really locked on here. It's going to cause his dispersion to be a little bit wonky. Hoping to see him get locked on, but he's still not. Might have to manually lock on. Not really sure why he isn't. Must just not be aware. That can happen in the heat of the moment.
Torpedoes to starboard.
Okay, so maximum AP shell damage, 3,100 per shell. with an initial AP shell velocity of 841 meters per second, which is pretty decent, I think, for a a tier 7 cruiser. There are, if you're talking about Russian cruisers, of course, they're like laser beams, but the Fiji is a lot of fun to play. Now, I think it was more fun
Torpedoes to starboard.
when released than it is now. I think it's been seriously power crept by, well, pretty much everything. We've got German destroyers, for example, that basically can one-shot a Fiji. But still a fun ship, and with a neat skill set. You're going to see him put the shells to work here on a York that's going to be showing some broadside. Only 5,900, but the lock-on now, and I was really hoping for bigger results there, but you can't always get what you want. I know there's a song about that somewhere. Almost enough, but not quite. And the sub continues to ping. Now I have to say, through the holidays, I had a lot of videos that were just kind of stacking up, and it actually goes back even beyond that. This game replay was sent to me quite a while ago. I have a few that I think are from 4 or 5 months ago that I've gotten to. There were new ships released and various other things happening, and then the holidays were on us. And although I think I've been pretty consistent with keeping the videos coming for the most part, there were quite a few that stacked up. I probably had about 30 of them. So I've been working to try and get some of these older ones put out because they are fun to watch. And so the Fiji, as you take a look at the top of the screen here, you can see the good guys have lost the Omaha, the Shiratsuyu, the Gaida, the Nicholas, and another Nicholas. And the red team is only down 4 ships: Nicholas, Farragut, Emil Bertin, and New York. Now, as the good guys lose their Prince Heinrich. And the U-69 is not long for this world. With 165 and decreasing HP, he's about to get sunk. And there he goes. The Fiji is, in my opinion, a very power-crept ship. The entire line kind of is. I have to say, I like playing the line. They are fun, but part of the fun for me is the challenge, because even if you're using smoke, you can get blapped sitting in smoke. People have gotten so much better at blind firing into smoke, especially if they're using a spotter plane, and can kind of get a little bit better angle to determine the depth of your location within the smoke cloud, etc. But our hero, he does a pretty good job here of making good use of the guns while also making good use of the cover, because he spends a lot of this game essentially open water gunboating, which is very risky. That Pensacola, for example, if the Pensacola landed a good shot on the Fiji, well, it might be a quick trip back to port for the Fiji. And, I mentioned a little bit ago about how the velocity drops significantly at range, and you can see they're basically just falling out of the sky. And it does make it very challenging to land them. I think really 8 to 10 kilometers is probably going to be optimum. You can land shells on like battleship superstructure at range. It's a little bit easier. They're a little less maneuverable. But against cruisers that are maneuvering, it's tough to land shots. So I'm telling you that because I don't want you to feel like, well, Claymore, man, he's just not putting the shells out in the right place. Well, it's very tricky. And if you've never played this line, you really wouldn't have any reason to know that. Now, the Pensacola shells are super heavy, very big. And putting the brakes on may have saved our hero's bacon. Now, right now, the green team is down to 5 ships. This is looking really, really bad for our hero and his team. They've still got Ranger, they've still got Fuso, of course, Claymore Man won in the Fiji, a Nuremberg, and a Dupleix. Let's just say that. The red team still has a sub, the Catch-a-Lot. The destroyer Mutsuki, which has got fantastic detection radius, but fortunately is blapped by the Fuso. Of course, getting close enough to blap a destroyer can often mean that there are torpedoes on the way, but I think given the angle that the Mutsuki was at, Fuzo's probably okay. So, Cachalot, Pensacola, Baleares, Isa, or Icy, or however you'd like to say it, Gneisenau, and then the Ryujo. So it is 6 ships to 7, and the Cachalot is now harassing our hero in his own cap. Not a good position, or one that we would envy. As the sub continues to ping the Fiji, and you can tell this was a little while ago because we're not seeing the little indicator pop up that says this is where he pinged you from. Actually, in a way, kind of an interesting retrospective on the, I don't know, I'll just say haphazard. Oh, there it is. Okay. Haphazard way that, so I was mistaken. It's in the game. I just didn't see it before. The subs were rolled out, and I can't really say that I was terribly surprised. And if you've been playing this game any length of time, I'm sure you probably weren't either. You could be disappointed without being surprised. The CV rework was, in my opinion, an epic failure that amounted to essentially about an 18-month forced beta test where the player base was made to help beta test these somewhat crazy ideas that the wargaming team had for CVs.
Torpedoes
Even if you didn't want to stick with the old RTS style, as the Cachalot pinged our hero again, there were other ways to implement CVs, and I think myself, and I'll mention it again and again probably as videos continue, one of the best things that they could do, and still could
Torpedoes
do
dead ahead.
with CVs, is to limit their spotting to minimap only. You know, that would really help the game, in my opinion. Now, I'm not saying this from the perspective of, hey, I want this to be easier for me. I think it's better game balance. When you can use aircraft to light up half of the enemy team and your big ships can all target one thing, it makes it almost suicidal to push up. And there are so many things in this game that force us to play the long distance game, and it's not really all that fun. I mean, you'll hear people talking about, I want to engage, I want to mix it up, and I think a lot of us prefer that to having to sit back behind islands and play a 20-minute game that is kind of boring and methodical, rather than as you get some. Oh, nice.
Enemy submarine sunk.
Gets some depth charges in the water there, right on top of the Cachalot, and finishes him off. Spaceship Yamato is out of the game. That's kill number 2 for our hero, and he's closing with Isa, which is dangerous. You can see Isa has aircraft in the form of torpedo bombers, and there's also a cruiser out here. Now, the cruiser doesn't have much in the way of HP, so that could present an opportunity. As he takes a look to see whether or not Gneisenau can get guns on him, and turns into the torpedoes. Very well done, avoiding what could have been a devastating torpedo attack, but that does force him to come nose to nose with a battleship at range 7. Really lucky. You know, it might be argued that showing broadside at this range to a battleship might be safer, because you're more likely to get overpens, and a really smart idea by our hero here as he spreads the torpedoes out himself rather than counting on the game to do it, and increases, at least in my opinion, increases his opportunities for actually landing torpedoes considerably as he turns around. And he's got torpedoes now on the other side of the ship, and boom, boom, boom. 3 torpedo hits takes a lot of damage away from that battleship, and now he's swung around and in position to be able to drop torpedoes out the other side of the ship. Now, this is a really risky move. And why do I say that? Well, there's an island you can see just off to the starboard side. Take a look at the mini-map. There's not a lot of room to maneuver here. And he is now visible. And he's going to be taking fire immediately. Oh, the battleship did not aim well, and as a result, now that gap in his firing, that told the battleship player, hey, torpedoes are on the way. I'm not sure why Paul Sibir is so bent on making use of these torpedo bombers,
Smoke generator
but it's really
activated.
costing it. He's not using the guns. And our hero, once again, angles beautifully. And a torpedo hit finishes off that battleship. I don't know about you. When I saw this, I
Smoke
thought, man,
screen set.
this looks like a trip back to port. Then I had to remind myself, well, you know, this game replay was sent to me actually by a friend of his. So presumably he has a nice game, and it would have been a little early to finish the game, and would have almost certainly spelled a loss, as I would have left only the Ranger to square off with the Pensacola, Baleares, Gneisenau, and Ryujo. Now, take a look at his position. He's almost dead center on the map. And that's a Gneisenau with pretty good-sized shells. In fact, really good shells for wiping out a destroyer. Seven hits, 5 ricochets, 1 non-pen, and an over-pen. Not what I would call stellar RNG there. Continues up the harassment. Now you see the Baleares. Now, I have to say, when I watched this video, my inclination would have been to finish off the Baleares right now. He's almost dead. Unfortunately, at least in my opinion, our hero stays focused on the Gneisenau, and Baleares is able to get north and get behind the island. And you'll see later that, you know, there was a small price to pay for that. 1,700. It would have been, I think, probably one volley to finish off that Baleares at the point it became visible. He closes on the torpedoes quickly enough to prevent them from arming, and Baleares is behind the island and no longer able to be shot. Which is really unfortunate. Now, that's not to take anything away from Claymore Man's game here, because he did play a great game. It's just unfortunate that he wasn't able to finish that ship off. Because if you count his kills right now, he's got 3. Chances of finishing the Ryujo, just because of the distance, in 3 minutes, pretty low. There's a chance to finish off Gneisenau, and then you would only need 1 more for a Kraken. Now you'll notice the arcs on these shells are pretty good. That these shells, while they do drop velocity a great deal at range, it does allow you to do things like this, which is just rain down shells from the other side of an island from relative safety. You can see the Baleares, he's just trying to stay alive. Kind of amazing, really, that the Ranger was unable to finish him, given that he only has, well, a handful of HP. And Claymore just keeps the shells raining down on Gneisenau, but you've got to place them really well, because, you know, Gneisenau's an angled battleship at this point. And unfortunately, unless you land in the superstructure, you're not going to do much in the way of damage. I think you got to aim a little higher. Let those shells drop right down into the superstructure. One more like that, I think you got it. 840 HP remaining, and then it's a run north to see whether you can catch Baleares.
We sank their battleship.
Got the AA going, and regardless of what's to come, a really fantastic game. 4 ships sunk, 115,000 damage and counting. Now trying to avoid a big airstrike here. Shooting down aircraft. And Ranger is, well, he's going to get maybe 1 more strike, right? I'm sure that the Baleares player has his ship running toward the A1 square on the minimap, which means there's not going to be any visibility. I think I probably would have started crossing rather than going this way. And I think, you know, we're going to see that borne out here in just a second, and it's going to all be up to the Ranger. Take a look at the score. 522, 524 to 524 with 44 seconds left. Ranger needs to get this. 1,776 HP. 30 seconds remain in the game. There's not enough time for our hero to get around the other side of the island. Yeah, still 1149 HP. You don't get to see this very often, but yep, that's right. Unless Ranger can finish him off right here in 5 seconds, we are going to see the ever elusive tie game. It's a draw. He finished him maybe a second or two after the game ended. Still a phenomenal game. Now, as I mentioned earlier, some of my replay files that I've had sent to me are getting a little long in the tooth. This one's been around for a while. In fact, this is before the update that started providing the ability to have the after action pages as a part of the replay. But we'll go back here for just a second and offer some praise for 169 shell hits, 4 ships sunk, 19 aircraft shot down, finished off a sub with depth charges, and really played a very, very strong game. Thank you very much for spending some time with me here. I really appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, I hope you'll like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.